Rosa Litvinoff and Levy, who was your grandma and my grandma.
Yeah.
Okay, now officially they married in 1924, but I don't know whether anyone has ever seen any kind of official documentation. I haven't, and I don't know whether they actually did it in the proper way. February 1924 was the date they gave for the marriage. I got that from Sonia, okay, one of the leaders. But yeah, I don't know whether they made it formal. But the weird thing about 1924, they're not American.
You mean they might not have been?
They might not be married, dare I say it. My sainted father may have been illegitimate. I don't know. But a lot of marriages were going on in the family in 1924. One of Solly's brothers, Harry, married in 1924, apparently, and I'll get on to him a bit in a minute. And another one of Solly's brothers, called Moss, also married in 1924.
Katie.
Now, he was already...
Good year.
Uncle Moss, did you ever come across him?
Yes,
Jack was Margaret's
wedding.
Yes. Oh, brilliant, yeah, he was at Frank and Doris's wedding as well.
Wasn't his wife Kate?
Yes, his wife was Kate. Now, I say they married in 1924, but they did officially marry. They married in the Sandwich Row Synagogue, which was the synagogue of the Dutch Jews. And again, I'll get onto that. That made sense, but they were already living together. You know, so they just...
reportedly known as Solly the Dutchman in some quarters.
Right, he
Like a
was.
man that stole an old
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I had Solly the Englishman, but Solly the Dutchman is...
Solly the Englishman we knew.
Yeah.
And well, the thing about Brando and Solly is he was foreign to your lot.
Yeah.
Because he'd been here, he was English born.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, he didn't speak much Yiddish or anything. He knew the stuff from the trade and tailoring and the sort of words, clubs, all the other things. But, you know, he wouldn't have been fluent in English in the way Grandma Rosa was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Martin, did you, I mean, because you've been doing this so long, did you look into marriages and all that on the official record?
Yeah, I've looked at ancestry and I haven't found anything.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean it's not there. Because the thing about Levy, you know, lots of them, lots of Solomon Levy's, and Levy's spelled in a number of ways. And Litvinoff isn't always spelled in the way that you guys spell it. I mean, if you look at the early documents, it's L-E-T, L-E-I-T, and then sometimes it ends in a V. A bit like Michelson as well, which was the maiden name of Grandma Rosa. When she was in Odessa, before she married Maxim Litvinoff, she was a Michelson. The whole thing about Jews and names is actually quite complicated because, you know, it's not as if they inherited them from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. What was that?
Right in the vein.
Yeah, of course you could. You can listen, but we're talking about just
He wants to intervene.
Oh, yeah, of course you can say something if you like. Yeah.
I was going to school next door.
Did you?
It's
Right.
a bonus.
Well, we're going to get onto that school.
Yeah.
And that, when you went, it was still Wood Close, is that right?
It was St Barnes then,
Okay.
and before that it was Wood Close.
Yeah. So the number of name change.
Serious names.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about our parents' generation, all grew up
Jews.
around here.
Yeah. And it's gone now. There's a shop here,
Yeah.
and I used to go in there. I had a pierced ears,
Oh yeah. Yes, yeah.
and there was a couple of Jewish couple who had it. He was a sergeant in Bethnal Green Nick,
Right.
and this like the shop, blah blah this, and those typically Jews, Eastern Jews. Anyway, sorry.
East End Jews and drinking. They did actually drink, the English ones, the English Jews. Yeah. Anyway, don't worry. Right, okay, so we start with Solly. Solly Levy, my granddad, not their granddad, our granddad. Yeah? Right. Solly was one of the 5 sons and 4 daughters of Issy, Isaac, and Millie Levy, right? Millie Levy. Millie was born as Solomon's. Right, and here's our first story, because Millie's sister Rebecca was the great-grandmother of Mark Bolan. the 70s pop star.
It's kind of incestuous to like him then.
His surname was Fell.
Bad about
Fell.
that.
It was. It
Yeah.
was. You're right. It
Get
was.
it on, yeah.
And he was big, wasn't he? Mark Bolan
Yeah,
was like.
Yeah.
Right, and somewhere, I can't remember where, but I've seen a photograph of Naughty Uncle David, and we're all familiar with Naughty Uncle David, with Mark Bolan. So it just makes me wonder, were they aware of the family connection? They might not have been, you know. Why should they have been? But there we go. I won't say anything more about David. Now, Solly's family...
Who's the most interesting one of them all?
yeah, but he pretended to be a Litvinoff, so that
What
kind
was
of...
dirt?
No, he wasn't. He was
I'm there for the dirt. Yeah.
technically a Levy.
Yeah, it was. Well,
Posed as a Litvinoff.
he posed as a Litvinoff, so he's beyond the pale, as far as I'm concerned.
Poor David.
Was it just for
It was affectation.
celebrity?
I think he thought it was more interesting.
It was more interesting.
Famous, weren't
Sorry?
Yeah.
Manny and Barney were
Yeah.
well known at the time.
Yeah.
So I guess
So by
so it was
association,
cliche.
made him a bit glamorous.
I mean, at the time, in the 50s, Manny was a bit of a powerhouse. I mean, he was very well known in journalistic circles and outside them. Manny, of course, in Zionist circles, that's where he particularly made his impact. I would
He's
say.
a writer.
was
Yeah.
He's a poet.
Plays and books and
Your dad was a poet.
No,
Manny, yeah. Yeah, of course, the
Can I
during the
also
war,
say-
which was very important.
He was known in Yiddish circles, and in fact, you might not know this, but he published in the Yiddish press.
Did he?
I found a few
Did he
pieces
write
that he
in
wrote
Yiddish?
in Yiddish.
I wish I had my hearing aids. What, Manny or
got mine in.
Good, yeah.
Manny.
Manny published. So he had that knowledge of Yiddish. He was able to do that.
I wonder if it was him or if it was someone else, but yeah, I mean, I think it was under Emmanuel, it wasn't under Manny. So.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
I'll-
he didn't
I'll-
publish under Manny. Yeah,
No.
we've been under
So I
Emmanuel.
will, I'll look it out and find it, send it to you in Yiddish.
The thing about Manny, he did use a number of pseudonyms when he was writing. Of course, he ghostwrited some of Lewis Golding's books.
Yeah.
Lewis Golding was one of the very great sort of novelists of the 30s and 40s into the 50s, and I think Manny sort of took over.
At the Quayside, he wrote
Yeah,
at the Quayside.
That's
Yeah.
right.
To
yeah,
the Quayside.
yeah.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Sorry. She's the real expert on that.
Okay, now Solly's family came from Bessarabia on his father's side. That's now Moldova. I don't know where Moldova is. It's also part of Ukraine as well. Okay, but at the time when Solly's father's family came over, it was part of the Russian Empire.
Moldova is on the shores of the Black Sea.
Yeah, south of
Right,
Ukraine.
okay.
Yeah.
So what, near Odessa or?
No, further round.
Yeah.
I think further west.
Okay.
And it's kind of squeezed between the Black Sea and Romania. It's a very vulnerable country.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, I haven't been able to establish exactly when Solly's father's family came to England, but the first one who came here was, I think, a man called Gorodinsky. Now, Gorodinsky is quite a popular Jewish name in that area. Even today, in spite of the Second World War and everything else, you'll come across them. And the story goes, and I got this from Sonia, that, you know, this is so familiar from Jewish history. When he came across Officialdom in England, they said, Gorodinsky,
Yeah.
what is that? I'm not going to deal with it. I don't know how plausible this is, but you now are going to be Levi Levy. That's what I was told. So the Levies have got nothing to do with the priesthood, the Cohens, and all that kind of history.
Right.
You know, it was just a bog standard Jewish name, and we've got, you know, as simple as that. The only thing I know about that man, Solly's grandfather, is he had a horse and a cart. Again, I got that from Sonia, you know, and that was quite a thing, you know, to have a horse and a cart.
Yeah.
You know, it mattered. Now, on Solly's mother's side, they came from Holland. Right, they were Dutch Jews, and they've probably been Dutch Jews, as far as I can tell, for centuries. They arrived in the 1820s, and because they'd been here quite some time, by the time that branch of the family met your branch of the family, they were very English. They were working class Jews, and you know, they didn't have the concerns that the more recent immigrants had. Right. What kind of a man was Solly? Anyone want to suggest? Well,
He was a charmer.
oh good, so you met Solly a few times. I can just remember him distantly.
I was very young.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, well, he was dapper, You might have seen that photograph at one of Anne's events, something like that. Always nicely turned out, bit of a ladies' man. There are stories there. Very easygoing and not inclined to make a fuss about anything.
Right.
That was Solly. Take it or leave it.
He was very kind. I mean, I've got a
Yeah,
little bit of
very
memory
kind.
there.
He was
really
very
kind.
Kind, yeah.
No, he was
yeah.
just a really nice.
Good card player.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll get onto that. Yeah, when he used to come to our house, 'cause I think he circulated
He
around the
did.
Levys. He'd do
He did.
Jack's family, Frank's family, my family, possibly Sonia's. But he used to fall asleep after lunch.
Yeah.
My dad would give him a whiskey. I mean, that's the only reason why we had alcohol in the house. And then Solly would fall asleep, and my dad would put bits of paper on his head. So when he wake up, he'd be a little shower. Yeah, so Ruth, he was fond of cards. We know that. I don't know whether you got the cards. We got.
I
He'd
think
bring
he
out
taught
old
us,
packs.
he taught us rummy and
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
And he was fond of a drink.
Yeah.
He liked the pub. He was a working class Jew, went to the pub, so he would have frequented the pubs. Now, Solly wasn't an intellectual by any means. We all know that, but he did have intellectual interest. He was what was called a free thinker. Okay, what is a free thinker? Basically, an atheist, and he would take the mick mercilessly out of Yiddish people, Jewish customs, all the rest. It just didn't mean anything to him at all. And sometimes that was a bone of contention, not with the boys, but it was with Rosa. Okay, she didn't like that. I mean, she preserved a lot of the old Jewish customs.
Yeah.
You know, my dad told me if they mixed up the cutlery, this was in Dalston, they'd go into, she would bury them in the earth.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I don't know, sorry to interrupt, I don't know
Yeah,
if
no,
you
go
remember
on.
this, but Dad used to say that Solly chased him down the street with a copy of the Freethinker in his hand as if he was about to hit him. Do you
Well,
remember that story? Yeah. So there was a publication called the Freethinker
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that makes perfect sense. But your dad presumably wasn't particularly, well, he was spiritual, but not religious in the kind of institutional sense.
Well, I mean, he was involved in the occult, wasn't he?
I get that.
Well, in the 30s,
Yeah.
Otherwise, he was an agnostic. He described
I
himself.
think there were philosophical interests. I would imagine.
Yeah.
It was quite popular even into the 30s.
Yeah.
But anyway, Sonny was a bit of an adventurer in spite of his easygoing nature. During the First World War, he joined the army. Well, that was before conscription, right? So he was getting out, and he went to France, fought in some terrible battles, and was gassed and shot at the Somme. So he was very lucky to survive. Towards the end of 1917, he joined another sort of army, a very special army. He joined the 38th Battalion of the Royal Fusiliers, and the amazing thing about them is that they were a Jewish battalion. I mean, they were one of a number of battalions that were part of the Royal Fusiliers. They were raised, the 38th was raised in the East End by Jabotinsky. Right, Jabotinsky was an extreme Zionist, you know, not a nice man, very difficult to deal with, very uncompromising.
Did you say in 1917?
In 1917, late
So that's
1917.
when my two grandfathers had to make a choice between either fighting for Britain or fighting for the White Russians. And they went back to Russia.
It was a couple of months apart, very, very close. So
Right.
again, that's another thing that brings the Levys and the Litvinoffs
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
The men, whether they've been here quite some while, you know, or recently arrived, I mean, they were absent or they were about to go.
Yeah.
Right? You know, a lot of households had women in charge.
Well, Reutemann went and came back.
Yeah.
That's on my other side. And Litvinoff went and didn't come back.
Yeah.
And
What
there-
happened to him?
Well, there are different kind of stories. One story is that he was running along the quayside as the boat pulled out. And they were saying, "Come on, Litvinoff, come on," but he didn't make it. That's one story.
But that's what our mother's father told, and he was notoriously unreliable. So he told the story that there was Litvinoff, and he said, "Come, Litvinoff,
Yeah.
come,"
Yeah.
and he
It's a
did. He
good
missed the
story.
boat.
He slept in this one annual
He
He slept in.
slept in. Maybe that's
He,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
had
possibly.
intended to catch that boat.
Yeah.
And when he woke up and gathered his things, the
Too
boat,
late.
it was too late,
Yeah.
it was moving, and they were waving to him, but he missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other.
There's a theory, isn't there, that he just found a nice Russian woman.
That's what our dad kind of thought.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing is our maternal grandfather's other story about when they said, "What were you doing there in Russia?" He said, "We were printing money." So,
Right. Yeah, what was all that about?
yeah. But as I say, he was notoriously unreliable. So they could have been doing anything.
Yeah.
Well, with Adrian and Miles, with their Reitman heritage, that becomes part of, it influences the Levy heritage and the Litvinoff heritage in all sorts of interesting ways. So the Reitmans are definitely part of the story, in a way. Okay. Right, was Solly a Zionist? Well, I may have already have answered that, I can't remember. But rather surprisingly, the answer was no. Right. The 38th Battalion, as I said, they were raised in the East End and they were English Jews on the whole. They were not Zionists. I think the 39th Battalion may have been raised in Palestine, and there was another battalion which I think was raised in North America. They just didn't get the 38th because they try and inspire them, come home, let's make a life here. And, the Jewish boys from the East End just wanted to go home. I think Solly was probably inspired to join them, A, because he didn't want to go back to France and all the fighting in Europe, and it was the adventure. And it was something to say, I've been to the Holy Land, I've been to Jerusalem. Yeah. So Solly was there with Allenby, and he was in the thick of the fighting at various points. Wow. They made him a sergeant. He could look after himself, and he also contracted malaria. I don't know whether, Helen, you got that from your mum at all, but my mum used to say, when Solly was still living in Hackney, she would sometimes go there and nurse him through his malaria periods.
How old would he have been at that point?
Well, when he was in the Holy Land, he would have been just about 21, 22. Something like that. So a very young man, and he was a bit of a lad, our Solly. I'm not going to go into that particularly, but he was. Yeah. He was a young man with a passion for life. Okay, now in 1921, before Solly went to wooing of Rosa, right? Okay, he did something which I think was quite adventurous, and it involved going abroad. Can anyone suggest where he might have gone? Where a young Jewish man might have gone in 1921?
Palestine.
No, he's seen that, he's been there, seen it, done it. I'm not going back, he would say. I do have a recording of him somewhere actually, discussing the Arabs in Palestine. It's quite interesting.
1921.
Where would Solly have gone? Any idea? No, but that's a very good guess. He actually went to South Africa. And why would he go? Why would a young man who wanted a pile of cash go to South Africa?
Mining.
Mining! Solly thought he would become a diamond miner. And come back and be the toast of the East End. It didn't work out like that. He did get his photograph taken on a horse. I've never seen it, but Manny talks about it. I think Barney talks about this photograph as well. He's very proud of it. Bring it out. This is me on a horse in South Africa. Should have been on something more exotic, really, shouldn't he? Anyway, he became a manager of a hotel. That's as good as it got for Solly. And then he thought, I've had enough of this. I'm coming back home.
How did you get that information about what he did, why he went to South Africa?
Well, on Ancestry, you can find it there. You get a record of the ship out to Cape Town, the time he was there and when he came back. But anyway, I've probably said enough about that. Shall we look at the site of Carmel House? Carmel House was where the Levys lived. Litvinoff's, Fuller Street buildings, Levy's, Carmel House. Right, and as I say, there's no walking involved. We really don't have to go very far.
We better not.
No, sorry, Jack.
Can't we go over that elusive bridge?
Can we
and
look
just
at the
see
bridge?
what it
Yeah,
looks
we'll
like?
look at the bridge now then.
We really want to see if there's another side to it on this map. You know a lot about your dad, don't you?
Well, I mean,
You made it a real journey, discovery, haven't you?
Well, I was lucky to
Yeah.
have him for
Yeah,
a good
you
portion
were,
of my life.
yeah.
So
He was still of
here we
sound
are.
mind and, yeah.
Can you see?
Coming up.
It's that little knuckle on the thing. It's still there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so is the wall that
And
covers,
the
of
window,
course.
The window over
It is
there.
the same wall.
Yeah, it's the same wall. That's right. Yeah, it's just covered with graffiti.
But you
But
can see the window. The window is
oh, the window
same.
there. Yeah.
The drain pipe. Same
Yeah.
drain pipe. Yeah, you're correct. I concur. It's a great such an iconic.
Liverpool Street.
What's that?
Do you want a picture?
Oh, I'm okay. Don't worry about that. That's all right.
I'm
Um,
good.
Such an iconic picture. This one.
Do I sound like a railway?
No, just not so much that. Can we get all? Can we get us?
We should
get ourselves
definitely take
all in?
one
Oh.
when we're going to eat somewhere, aren't we?
Yeah.
When we
Well,
eat
we should take
somewhere.
one of you walking up there
Oh.
and holding on to that.
I mean, if you want to, but
Come on, I mean, don't you want that picture?
Can we all get into one?
oh, Mum, it's a
If
selfie.
you don't mind.
Miles, are you getting into the selfie? Oh, Vivian, take it.
Because it's not going to be a selfie.
Okay,
now.
as I'm short, I'm going to go.
Okay.
We're not at the back.
Order. Fast. Okay. Now, in my best theatrical way, what was Carmel House? Well, what was it? It no longer exists, at least as Carmel House. This was the site of it. This was the site of Carmel House. Okay, now Carmel House was a tenement block. Now, if you guys know anything about tenements at all, you're probably thinking of those massive factory-like structures. I think you've got them in the Gorbals in Manchester, in Glasgow, and they had them also down in that direction. There's one in particular, Rothschild Buildings, which was quite a famous one. A guy called Jerry White wrote a book on it. But anyway, Carmel House wasn't like that. It was a tenement, but it was only about 2 or 3 floors. There were 10 flats in there. Okay, the Levys lived at number 5, and if we include a niece, in 1921, when the census was taken, there were 10 of them crammed into 2 rooms.
This is Solly's parents' family.
So, Solly's parents' family were there in 1921. So it's Issy, it's Millie, and it's the children, except Solly, because he was somewhere. Where was he? He was in South Africa at the time. Solly was in South Africa.
So Martin, this would have been the upper floors of it, you mean?
Yeah, it wasn't any bigger than this. I mean, this.
But it must have been
For all I
this.
know, this might be.
This is it. This is Victorian.
Yeah.
It must have been
It
this.
probably is. Yeah, if you look at the age of the bricks. Issy, Isaac, and Millie, Amelia.
Who was Bessie?
Bessie was
The
one of
sister.
his sisters.
Okay, because we lived in Devon.
That was Ray.
Oh, okay.
Ray lived with Millie in
Barnstable.
Barnstable.
Yeah.
Who lived in Dunstable?
It was Barnstable.
Because we visited them. They were so poor.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, I do.
They had nothing.
Yeah. That was Solly's mum and his sister.
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah, my parents went there in the 1950s.
And I think
Yeah.
parents did when they were before they had us.
Yeah,
Or when
I-
I was little, I think I was a baby.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if you fancied a West Country holiday, you thought, oh, I'll go to Barnstable and meet the relatives, and it was all, oh golly, let's get back to London. This is hell. Okay. They also had a scullery. A scullery, I think, was where you prepared food, did the washing, that sort of thing, a kind of a mini kitchen. So they were very crammed in. Does anyone follow boxing here? You're all boxing fans, I can tell.
Yeah.
Okay, well, at number 5, in the same flat where the Levys lived, a chap called Tony Burns, who apparently is one of the great trainers of the period. He trained the Crays, those nasty two, to box at Repton Boxing Club, which is not too far from here. So he was living there in the 1950s, by which time this was really, the area was really, really going to seed, to be honest. It really was. If you look at photographs in the 50s through to the 70s, it's a bloody nightmare. It's a nightmare. Okay, what was life like in Carmel House? I could call it hell. You think of all that overcrowding, but it wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. But it wasn't very nice either. There wasn't electricity. It was lit by gas. Warmth came from an open fire. The loos, where were they? Outside. You've probably heard about those from your dad.
Well, from Fuller Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fuller Street was quite similar.
Yeah.
And they were shared with all the other residents. Maybe 3 loos for 40, 50 people. No one had any privacy. Forget about that. You slept where you could find a space. I mean, the beds were rolled up and whatever. People slept on sofas that doubled as beds and all the rest of it.
That is if you could sleep at all, because during the summer, the flat was full of something. I don't know what it was full of.
I stopped in the mid-50s, but I
Bugs.
imagine it was cockroaches.
Yeah, bugs. These flats were just absolutely bug-ridden, and they were hell to live in during the summer. There were bugs in the beds, bugs behind the wallpapers, bugs all over the floor, and all these preparations you could buy to deal with them, but they were never very effective. And quite often what happened, when a family moved, if they took their furniture with them, and all they just brought the bugs to the next house as well. You know, whether that was kind of like whether people were bullied because of that, I rather think they probably weren't, because everyone had bugs. Outside in the street where we are here, it was absolute mayhem. Most of the, particularly on Sundays, you had the Club Row Market down there, which spilled over into Cheshire Street. So there was a hell of a lot going on. The only time it wasn't busy was Saturday. That's when it was quite quiet. Sunday was really the busiest day when people out of town came to the markets there. Lots of unemployment, no surprises there. Very, very high crime. Now, regarding the Club Row, right, street robbery, all sorts of gambling was going on, swindling, all of that. You know, people were very fast with the cards, all of that, mugging. Anyway, in 1923, what's it called? In Sclater Street, I think it is, which is just a little bit down there, there was something occurred called the Great London Stampede. So that was in 1923, okay? And basically it was caused by rival gangs playing a dice game called Crown and Anchor. It was started by somebody shouting, "Man with a revolver!" And hundreds, if not thousands of people just scattered. Now the Club Row Market was famous for its animals and its birds, and hundreds of those were killed. No, numerous people broke their bones, and this was actually a worldwide story. If you're living in Brazil or Argentina, you could read about the Great London Stampede of 1923. Thank goodness, I don't think any of the Levys or the Litvinoffs were involved. They were too sensible. They stayed out of it. What about the neighbours? Well, if we're talking about the area as a whole, not all of them were Jewish. You know, Sally, you mentioned your family were in Bethnal Green. You know, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of Irish, a lot of Welsh, Scottish, a lot of people who'd just been in England for a long, long while. Jewish entry into Bethnal Green was relatively late if you compare it to Spitalfields. That's where the Jewish population was largely concentrated, and they spread gradually towards Bethnal Green. Does that make sense? Yeah, good, yeah.
Well, Spitalfields always, I think, I hear Spitalfields and I think of the Huguenots.
Yeah, absolutely. You think it's Whitechapel, basically. It's a different sort of experience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, as I said, there were 10 flats in all. Almost all the parents who lived here were born abroad. They were all Russians, Poles, Romanians, but the kids were almost all born in England. That was the way. Does anyone know what the Dutch Jews were called? The Jews that had been settled here a long, long while. There was a word for them. What was it? Huts. I'm glad you said it rather than me.
Yeah.
And there it is. That's the giveaway, isn't it? It actually is supposed to sound quite Dutch. And that's what they were called. So Solly, basically, even though his granddad was from Bessarabia, was a
But I don't think it was a very nice word. I think it was derogatory.
yeah. And what were the other lot called? What were the recent arrivals called?
What was it? Greener?
Yeah.
Greeners.
They had a number of names, didn't they?
Go on.
Well, one of them was Peruvians, and that's got an interesting etymology. But the main one was Polak. And when you think of Polak, you might think of Poles. But the Russians, the Jews, the Romanians were indiscriminately called Polacks.
Yeah, but we say the same here with India.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going out for an Indian, but you're actually
You
not.
want to be cool.
Yeah. And there were kind of differences, naturally. I think the Russians looked down on the Poles looked down on the Romanians, all the East Europeans looked down on the local Jews because they couldn't speak Yiddish very well.
They had a slightly different accent.
Yeah.
So if you came from the north of Eastern Europe, you would have said the word bagel. If you came from where most of the people came to here, which were the Polak, you'd say bagel. Yeah, so we said bagels, didn't we?
growing up.
Yeah,
So,
we
so,
said
so bagel
we
got
said
used
bagels,
later because
we
it's
said
an American
bagels and
thing.
pretzels.
Yeah, bagels and
That's
pretzels.
what I knew about Jewish cuisine. Bibles.
That whole thing about pronunciation, I wouldn't risk my life about
Yeah.
it. You know, I don't know why people. It's funny, that isn't it? Okay.
It's a shibboleth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
That's the whole thing.
I have mentioned Solly. I have mentioned Solly's mother. I have mentioned Solly's father, and I briefly mentioned some of Solly's siblings. But let's say a bit more. Louis Levy, one of Solly's brothers. Apparently, he was a murderer.
Oh,
Louis, that's probably why.
good to have one in the
no one
family.
knows anything
Every
about
family
Louis
must have
Levy.
one. Yeah.
He has been expunged from the record. The story goes that he went to Australia, got into a fight with a man in a bar, swung a punch and killed him, and was consequently executed. Now, my father always said that was anti-Semitism. You kill a man in a bar. There you go. I don't know why it happened. You know, I haven't found out anything more, but that's what happened to Lewis. Now, this guy, Harry, you might have come across Harry. Harry, another one of Solly's siblings, he also had a pseudonym, Tony Morelli. Tony Morelli, right? Harry never managed to settle down. He was a hairdresser, then a boxer, then a stuntman.
Oh.
I've got a recording somewhere of a film with him in it. I think it's one of those Dick Barton films. My dad spoke of him climbing up Blackpool Tower for one film. Anyway, Harry was very good at swindling.
Come in a little bit. Because
Yeah. We don't want any injuries. We're not insured, you know. Health and safety will get involved. Anyway, well, Harry excelled at swindling. That was apparently how he made his money. He made up to vulnerable women, and he basically took their savings. Nasty, isn't that? Solly's horrible brother, Harry. Horrible. When during the 50s, your dad, Manny, wrote an article on intermarriage for an American newspaper, and Manny, of course, had a particular interest in intermarriage, you know, with his first wife, Julia. He mentioned an occasion when Harry paid a visit, to Rosa in Fuller Street building. Harry paid a visit with Rosa. He brought his new wife with him, a French woman and a Gentile. And Rosa had never entertained a Gentile at that stage. This was in the 1920s, and she certainly never entertained an intermarried couple, and was very anxious about it, as indeed everyone apparently was in Fuller Street buildings. It was quite the talking point. But the Tea Party passed off well, according to Manny, and after the couple left, Rosa remarked that Harry's new wife wasn't bad for a shiksa. And that is the sort of thing Jewish women are always saying about their intermarried children. You know, that happens all the time. Now it's time for the Litvinoffs. I think we've had enough of the Levys.
Martin, can I just ask, where was Fuller Street from here?
It was sort of between this road and the next turning, St Matthew's Row, I think.
That area.
So, yeah, see where we started off? I think it was a bit further along on the left. On the left. So that's where Fuller Street Buildings was.
there's still a place called Fuller's Close.
Yeah, there's a few little bits, but most of the road was gone. Anyway, now, Aaron, you might know this. Now, my understanding is that the Litvinoffs lived at the far end, the Bethnal Green Road end of Fuller Street. Do you know that?
No idea. Do you know, Mum?
I think it was.
It was, yeah. Okay. Right. Well, they lived in a tenement, as I've said, same sort of size as the one here. It's divided into two. I think there was, 54 and 56, and the Litvinoffs were at 54 in flat 3. Reutmans were in another flat. They were in flat 8. And they moved there in 1921, then in that year. 2 years and a bit after Barney was born. And there were 5 of them: Rosa, Abby, Manny, Pinny, and Barney. And by this time, you guys mentioned this earlier on, Maxim Litvinoff, Rosa's husband, had of course returned to Russia and disappeared in that terrible, war and revolutionary situation. It was ghastly. No one really knows. No. Basically, he was given the choice either of fighting for King George or fighting for our ally, the Tsar. This was before the Russians left the war. And I think he decided, I'll go there and take my chances.
You know, maybe I'll see out the war if I'm clever.
Well, Dad used to say that he thought that the war would be over by the time he got there.
Yeah, right.
So
okay.
that's why it might have been the assumption, because
Yeah,
it took so long to get there
yeah.
anyway. That
It was a good gamble.
Yeah.
But it didn't pay off, unfortunately, in his case. Now, Solly was born in 1895, Rosa in 1894, so she was slightly older. And I have to say that this lot didn't really approve of her. You know, they thought designing Rosa with her, you know, eye on lovely Solly.
Yes.
You know, and that did create a problem, particularly the ladies of the Levies were not.
Wasn't
particularly
Rosa
keen.
much pursued by other men as well?
Well, there's the Paisky story, which is in Journey Through a Small Planet. But she was a very attractive woman. I have
That's
got some
one,
photographs
yeah,
in here.
yeah.
You know, absolutely very, very stunning, I think. You know, nicely turned out. Now, I don't know why the Litvinoffs and the Reitmans came here. There were pogroms in Odessa, but they came in 1913. And there's a really good film, I don't know whether you've seen it, Man with a Movie Camera
No, they
by
came
Vertov.
earlier than that.
Did they? I thought I got it from Barney, 1913.
1967.
Oh wow, that is interesting. How do you know that, Adrian?
How do I know that? It's just part of
what
my
year?
folklore.
What year?
1960. They travelled from Odessa. They went up the Danube
Yeah.
to Vienna. They lived in Vienna for a year. Uncle Harry was born there. They travelled down to Antwerp, down the Rhine, and they lived there for a while. And I think Maisie was born there. And then they crossed to London.
Right.
What I heard was they were trying to get to the United States, because they had no money or
Yeah.
they didn't have the
Certainly family.
capacity to organise
Yeah.
it.
Now that's the story that Barney gives in
Right.
True Born Englishman.
Right.
But it's the date that's the problem there. If they did leave 1905, there was a pogrom in
Yes.
Odessa
Yeah.
that year, and there would have been other
Yes.
problems as well. So
Yeah.
that could explain things. But I think probably there was a commercial angle as well.
Well-
They wanted to make something of themselves.
what my dad used to say, he
Yeah.
never mentioned that they were fleeing any kind of violence. He said that they were economic migrants.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Mum?
That would make-
He never said they were fleeing any particular conflict, did he, Mum?
No.
No.
But they had good jobs. Good contracts.
We think,
But there were
yeah, Reutmann.
well problems.
10-2.
Yeah.
We'll go to 2 o'clock.
80s, 90s, and into the
Yeah.
20s.
Okay.
But
I
if
mean,
they were spending a few years and children were born and then another few years, they'd perhaps come to London around 12,
Yeah.
13.
you know, it's such a pity that Barney, Manny and the boys didn't get these
Yeah.
things from their mum and from maybe from speaking to Alec Reutman and get it all down. And
We all feel like that about our older generation.
When we
Yeah.
tried to talk to Rebecca,
yeah, that was one of Alec Reutman's sisters.
no,
mother.
Sylvie's
his wife.
Okay, right, yeah.
His wife,
Yeah, okay,
his
Alex's
wife.
yeah.
By the time we got round to asking the question, she just said, "I've forgotten."
Okay,
I
yeah.
never answer anything.
Yeah.
But we have got 2 letters written by a relative grandmother in somewhere in Ukraine or Odessa in Yiddish on tatty bits of paper, which bits were translated talking about the bandits. That somebody, poor Alex or somebody, was attacked by bandits, so there was violence
That is
going on.
wonderful. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I can translate that for you if you want.
I'll dig them
So-
out because
specifically
our
so-
mother left them,
Ah.
which you've got them or I've got them. One
Yeah.
of us. I'll try and dig them out. Remember, our cousins sent them to Israel for translation.
Yeah.
They're almost indecipherable.
Yeah.
But they could be really interesting.
Yeah,
if you want
yeah,
to
indeed.
decipher.
You usually manage handwriting.
Well, it's so nice to know they exist because
Yeah.
I understood from Sonia there were letters,
Yeah.
and in fact she told me she once asked Rosa about them. What are these letters about? And Rosa said, you know, they're from the old country and they want soap. They're asking for soap.
These ones, they were asking for money.
Yeah.
They said they were starving.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 But this was on our mother's side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, in most respects, the people in Fuller Street buildings face the same problems as the people over here. Bugs, lack of privacy, overcrowding. And I think I mentioned the absence of men.
You know, they were either in Russia or they were fighting in the First World War. Not that everyone saw the absence of men as a lack. And I'm thinking of Manny here. Some people, young Manny for instance, rather like not having a dad around, you know, a male presence, because of what he'd seen of them had not impressed. Next door at number 4 at Fuller Street buildings were the Shrapniks. Manny calls them the Zingers in Journey Through a Small Planet. Mr. Shrapnik, quote, this is from Manny's book, there was a twitching grey-faced man who made himself too ill to be a soldier, smoking hundreds of cigarettes every day and living for weeks on bread and water. And if you look at the census in 1921, you can identify him. There he is. He's sort of 28 or 29. He's ill. He's just smoked himself to an early grave. Now, there are many other characters in that book as well, which you can identify from using official records.
Wow.
Sometimes I changed the name, sometimes he left them the same.
Interesting.
For Rosa, of course, the lack of a man meant days and sometimes nights of arm and eye straining work. She was a dressmaker. She had no money to speak of. She was bereft. She was the mother of 4 grown boys. But being a resourceful woman, she took out her singer-sewing machine and she got to work. In 1921, she even had an apprentice. But don't be misled. The Levy's, just because she had an apprentice didn't mean that she wasn't poor. The Litvinoffs were poor. They were the poorest of the poor. They really were. Any furniture they had at this stage was very likely scrounged or given to them by the ever helpful Reutmans. And it wasn't unusual for people then to use orange boxes as chairs and tables. Nothing unusual about that.
Well, Reutman was a furniture maker.
Right, so he could have...
And Harry went to work with him. So, yeah.
He could have made something for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, in those days, most people were used to doing and mending. For the boys, this meant not just clothes patched together from stray bits of material from Rosa's dressing business, but trousers without flies. And as a man, I can say, if I had a pair of trousers without flies, I would feel somehow different to others. She could never do flies. Children didn't wear shoes in those days, they wore boots. But the Litvinoff boys didn't always have boots. They ate, but they didn't eat well, and there were days when they went hungry. Okay? Your dad went hungry. At one point, things got so bad that there was talk of them going into an orphanage. This was the Jewish orphanage in Norwood, South London, near where I used to live. But Rosa wouldn't have any of it. So she denied them, naughty Rosa, what they sorely lacked: warmth, free accommodation, decent clothes, and the opportunity to grow without the buckling effect of poverty. Because they did, you know, I know Manny in particular, and I've got some quotations there. Those boys did suffer. This is how Barney described their situation in his memoir of a very British subject. He says, residents in Fuller Street buildings stamped as Neanderthal survivors emerged from some remote desert or jungle, fortunate to join a civilized society. And Manny says even worse. This is in 1940. In a letter to Barney, quote, we were deprived of the necessary care and dignity of a good home, a sound education and freedom from anxiety. Instead, we had to experience bitter poverty and see our beastly home invaded by a strange man who was legally entitled to make love to our mother when the two of them were not indulging in abuse and recrimination extending into the night and into our own horrified souls. So things were not pleasant in Fuller Street buildings. My God, they were not pleasant. That's strong stuff. Yeah.
Barney used to describe a sense of shame every time another Levy arrived in the world.
Right,
Yeah, I was going to say that. The kids at school would say, is your mum going to have another one?
Well, it was a big family, but of course that wasn't untypical.
No, indeed.
You know, when the Levys were here, I've said there were 10 in there. That was the what's the word I'm looking for? That was the well, that had most people in it, but there were other flats with quite a high number as well. Okay, So what more of this marriage? Was it really as bad as Manny said it was? I think we can fairly say it wasn't. Not that Rosa and Solly didn't have their moments, because they obviously did, but as Manny goes on to say in the same letter, how many men would have considered taking on 4 boys? You know, Solly did that.
Yeah.
And Solly was proud of them. He also says that he was proud of the Litvinoff boys. He tried to do the best for them. And then, of course, he remained proud even when his own brood arrived. So Jack, David, well, Sonia first, Jack, David, Frank, and then my father. Solly never bore a grudge, of course, in spite of these arguments. He was too easygoing and irresponsible for that. If he lost his money at the dogs, he came back here. He just, you know, he'd lie low for a while. That was Solly's solution to domestic problems. Time. Things will get a little bit better, and they often did. Now, Manny tells the story of how the couple came together. It was via the Reutmans. It's in the book, Journey Through a Small Planet, Call Me Uncle Solly. It's that particular story. It all happened following a card party. Rosa, it turned out, had a choice. It was Solly or the abominable upholsterer, Paysky. And Paysky is not a pleasant character in the way he's described. He's, you know, put like that. What choice did Rosa have? No wonder she went for Solly the Englishman. Okay. Fuller Street, and I'm almost finished here, was where they would spend the first 6 or 7 years of their marriage. Just at the same time when the boys were going through puberty, again in this very tight accommodation. Eventually, what with the depression and Solly often being out of work, things got so bad that the family did a moonlight flit. Except it wasn't by moonlight. It was during the day, and it was on a Monday, because it was Monday that the rent had to be paid, so that people were always out just before that time. They gathered all their possessions and headed off to a vacant flat in Clarence Road at the corner of Mare Street in Hackney. That flat also proved uninhabitable, apparently had a dirt floor, so they weren't there for very long. Shortly after that, they were in Sandringham Road. And there begins another story. We'll leave it there because I think we need to go to the restaurant.
Also, don't forget the mural of
the
the portrait.
You show us that.
You can see it from here, but we'll walk up there. Let's walk up there.
Yeah, let's have a quick look at that.
Okay.